We're a legit operation over here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys got the nice mics, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're thinking about even upgrading, getting even nicer mics.
Yeah,
I
sound
mean,
even better.
This is Christmas.
I got one of
coming
the
early.
Yetis. I
Oh,
think
That's
they're
what
like
we need.
150 or
Yeah.
120
That-
at Target or something like that.
Yeah.
Way
that's
better
what-
than what's built in, but
Yeah.
nowhere near what most folks have.
Oh, you got
No.
it at Target? That's on brand.
That is on brand. Yeah. What else are you going to do?
Minnesota man.
Hey man, you got to save 5% today and every day with your red card, and you can
Yeah.
do that
That's true.
on the Yeti mic.
This episode is sponsored by Target. Promo code front and center for 30% off.
30's big.
30. Yeah, I was making it up, so I figured I might as well not cheap out on the discount. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Kevin.
What's
Definitely blew out the mic there.
No, actually, it didn't sound like it. But
Wow.
I'll check in post.
Wow. I'm in a good mood
Yeah.
today. Sun shining. Life is good. And it's another
Fresh
day.
haircut.
A fresh haircut. That's true. Nothing gives me more enthusiasm, excitement, confidence than a good haircut or just all haircut. It's one of the big sort of confidence tips I can give the people out there. If you're ever feeling really down or sad or bad, just go get a haircut. Everything is sunshine. We have another illustrious guest.
Wow.
2 weeks in a row. He's illustrious and he's an illustrator luminary. How about that for some vocabulary
Bars.
here? I've known our guest for over 10 years, maybe. We're just trying to put the pieces together. 2013, 10 years ago. There's a few things that I know about him. One, he loves Jesus. Two, he loves his wife and his family. We did our research. 4 boys, Alan?
4 boys.
4 boys. That is a
Wow.
lot of boys. He loves Minnesota. He loves America. He loves graphic design. He used to work at Target as a designer, not as a cashier. He loves drawing. He got shot once. That's just a fact. Kevin, have you ever been shot?
I have not.
No, you haven't. He loves biking and he loves a badge, an icon, a small symbol. And he's the partner and creative director of Peters Design Company. He's got a new book out now in stores called Logos That Last. It's Allan Peters in the building. Actually, not in the building, in the virtual building. How are you, Alan?
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex. Man, it's good to talk to you again. It's been a while,
It
and
has.
I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, it has been a while, but I feel like we run into each other every now and then, and it's always a delight. And it's good to it's good to read your book and to sort of see you're still at it, making logos, doing it big. So first question: how many kids are we trying to have here, Alan? 4 boys here is it's really impressive. What is it like to be a father of 4?
So we had 3 boys.
Okay.
And each kind of spaced out 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden we just couldn't have one. We tried, and we're like, what in the world's going on here? And prayed about it and all that kind of stuff. And 6 years later, 6 years,
Oh, okay.
we had Archer, and he's our little miracle baby. Love him so much. And so there's a big gap. So I got a 13-year-old, and then I have a 2-year-old.
Whoa.
So nice, big, broad range. And we homeschool them too. So like in the mornings, like this morning, when the 3 older ones were getting schooled up, I took the toddler, so that because toddlers, man, he like climbs on the kitchen counters and will like hit the hanging lights, and they'll swing forward and then whack him in the head. He'll be crying. Toddler, 2-year-old man, they go in everything. They dig. They're very curious and very sweet. And very much a handful.
It's impressive that you get anything done having, sort of all this running around your house. And do you just sort of have a room where you can kind of close the door and put on your giant neon sign and do your work? Is that kind of how it works?
Yes. I kind of have a window of time where, it's my core time to sit down and work. And I learned working at agencies, because I worked in house, I worked in agencies, I worked at design firms, but at ad agencies, holy cow, working on pitches. If you want to have a family and see them on the weekend and not just be working on a pitch every weekend, you got to learn to be really efficient with your time and work super fast and hard and just be able to focus. And so I learned that early in my career, and I've been able to do that ever since, where I can just really hunker down and get a lot of work done in a short period of time, especially if I'm not surrounded by people like at Target, where it'd be like, hey, how was your weekend? This and that. But now that I work on my own, I can just crank through projects and not rush them, but
Nice.
just really focus.
Did you have a lot of siblings growing up?
I just had a sister.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is when Maria and I first got married, she's like, well, I don't want to have kids. And I was like, that's fine. I'm like, I'll tell you what, Maria, I'll have as many kids as you want to have or as few kids as you want to have. I'm fine either way. And my sister had kids, and my wife was like, oh, this is nice. We should do this, Allan.
Yeah.
And then we had one. She's like, let's have another one. And then we just kept having them. And I think 4 is probably, it's to the point where I think we're good. We got the minivan filled up. So
Yeah.
I don't want to have to drive one of those giant bus things.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to get a Sprinter van?
No.
Get it all tricked out.
Well, a tricked out one that costs $120,000. Now you're talking.
Yeah, it'd be pretty sick. You can go to a local gym and play basketball. Just you guys. You could just roll up as a 5 pack and be like, "Hey, anyone want to play us? No subs." Just kind of jump in there.
We have fun, man. We'll go to we'll take tennis rackets and go play tennis. Two on each. Obviously without the toddler, but with 3 older boys.
Yeah.
Or we'll go play kickball or something like that. We can have somebody pitching, a couple people in the outfield, and one person kicking. We can have a good time. Just the 4 of us.
That's pretty convenient. Yeah, you could almost have like a full baseball team. You can cover sort of the outfield and a pitcher, and it's batting practice sounds delightful. Now that I think about it, to have a full squad of athletes or
100%.
People to play sports with. That's really what I'm looking for here.
It's fun. It's fun having a lot of kids. The downside is that they all want to talk over the top of each other. And so this one will be talking and this person will disagree and they'll talk louder. And then this person will talk even louder and somebody else will come in and talk louder. And so you'll be trying to have a meal and it gets really loud in our house. And they aren't arguing. They're just screaming over the top of each other, trying to be heard because there's so many people.
Question for you. You said you're homeschooling the kids, which is also incredible that you have this design studio and you're homeschooling, you're teaching. How much design are we incorporating into this curriculum? Like, are we teaching them vector, kerning, typography? Like,
my wife heads up the homeschooling. That's her thing. I mean, I come with on field trips and stuff like that. And
okay.
And I do a ton of reading out loud to the kids. And so there's that.
Logos That Last available now. That's what you read.
I haven't. I think they would like that. I read a couple of paragraphs out of there, and they were pretty excited. So yeah, maybe we'll sit down and read it. I just don't want it to feel like an ego trip. You know what I mean? But they love reading about like World War II and like all sorts of battles and things like that. They're boys, they get stoked about that kind of stuff or like medieval stuff.
Yeah.
I've read like reading like The Hobbit or C.S. Lewis. Stuff like that.
It's always the best way to get kids not to be into the things that you're into by sort of trying to cram design down their throat. So it's probably a good idea is that, maybe if you don't homeschool them to be the world's greatest graphic designers, that they'll actually maybe want to do it. And maybe, the Peters Design Co. can, you can have your first employees. Do you work with other designers, or is it just all a one-man sort of shop over there?
Yeah, I just do my own thing.
I love it.
When I was at Target, I had an opportunity to be like a senior manager type of thing. And I thought I wanted that. And I had reached out to this lady, Ruth, and she was really high up. And it would have been working for her. And I would have been like leading agencies and stuff like that. And she's like, Allan, you can have this job if you want this job, but you're not going to design anymore. And you love designing more than anybody in this whole place. And you're not going to be happy. So she's like, if you want it, you can have it, but I really don't think you're going to like it. And I took that to heart. At first, I was kind of like a little disappointed, but then I'm like, she's absolutely right. I just like making stuff. And there's a point in designers' careers, like, a lot of the people I went to school with now are all creative directors and ECDs or running their own agencies and stuff like that. And they're not really hands-on anymore, and they're leading the work and they're overseeing it and they're having the great vision and all that. But man, when I went to high school, even when I was younger than that, when I was like 5 years old, I just loved drawing. I just wanted to draw my whole life. And when you'd fill out those tests where you find out what you're going to be when you grow up, when you're like in 5th grade or whatever, 4th grade. It was probably high school. It was probably like freshman year. I remember filling it out completely, just like, I don't care what it tells me as long as it has something to do with being an artist. I just want to make stuff because I don't like any of the rest of these options.
Yeah.
and so I just like drawing for a living. I like making stuff. Although I got to say, dude, this guy, Paul Rand here. I remember reading this back in the day, and he would show up before everybody got there at his agency, and he would go and sketch out what every person was going to do for the day. He would have do a thumbnail sketch, write out all the notes. Here's what I want to look like. Here's the reference. And he would go around to every single desk. And I thought that was, when I read that, I was like, damn, this guy's a badass. And that would be pretty cool. But at the same time, I like making it, man. I like getting my hands dirty. Like my book, they offered me to have like an art director, somebody lay it out, and I just write it. And I'm like, no, I'm designing this whole thing tip to tail. I want to do it all.
I think that shows too. Like, again, from the first time I met you to today, like, I think your enthusiasm and your passion for the craft of it all is just like the thing that I think shines through. And it's been really cool also watching you on Instagram. So if you don't follow Allan Peters, check out his Instagram. He is a social media superstar. I will say that, designer to the stars. And I think a lot of it is just, you making stuff for the love of making it. And I think that is, I guess, like, talk to about that, like, process of kind of just putting your work on Instagram and sort of just showing people like the actual path and like the way in which you do the work. Cause I think in your book, that is a big part of it. It's not just like the Allan Peters portfolio book. It is a book on like, hey, this is my process. This is how I get from concept to reality. And this is, it's here for you to learn and to take it and run with it yourself.
So my philosophy is I do not like doing RFPs. I've done that for years, working at agencies and stuff like that, trying to get those clients, filling out the RFPs. You can't ever show the work. You just like working weekends on it. They usually want a quick turn. There's not enough time to do the highest quality work that I want to get done for these clients. And so what I've done instead, and I started doing this back when I worked at other places, is I just started making the kind of stuff I wanted to do. In this book, I have these like bike gang posters that I did for this art crank show, right? And it's a grid of 12 badges with a big overprint of another badge over the top of it. And the reason I did that poster is because I was working at BBDO at the time. And I had done a campaign where I got to do a few badges, and people were like, this is awesome. And it was winning awards. And I was like, I like this too. And I want to do more of this. And they always say, fill your portfolio with the type of work you want to do. And so I made this poster that had 13 badges on it. And then I started getting calls. I got calls from Nike and Patagonia to make badges for them. And hey, you make the work that you want to do and you put it out there and share it. That's way better than an RFP. So I do a lot of free work. I put things out there, just like I pitch ideas, or like, what if we did this, or what if we did that, or if I'm working on a personal project, I love sharing. Like, and I get to a point where I'm like, I don't know, I could go, one of these 4 directions. I'll share it with my followers on the process and say, hey, what do you guys think? Get a free focus group out of it, and I can still decide what I want to decide. But I love including the people in the process. They always like that, and people like being heard, and plus it just helps with engagement and all that kind of stuff. But I try and be really transparent, just get as much stuff out there as possible, try and post every single day. And by doing all that, I don't have to do the RFPs. All my work comes in. They call me up. Hey, Allan, I saw your work. I love what you do. I want the same thing for my company. That's what every single one wants to do. I don't have to like guess on what's it going to look like? What's the style? Like, no, they want, I'm a style house. People know me for a certain style, and they come to me because they know my process. They've seen it online. They know, the general vibe of the work I'm going to create for them. And they're usually stoked when I make it for them. And so it's like a win-win all the way around.
Living the dream.
Heck yeah.
And I think there's a lot of lessons in there. And I think, we've talked about this on the show, and I think we've met with people over the, over the year or two that we've been doing the show that have, continued to reinforce this idea that I also talk about, which is like, if you just wait for other people to brief you in or pay for you to do work that hoping of doing, it's like, you're not going to get there quick. You're going to, it's going to be tough. And so, you got to get out there and just, do it for the love, and
Mhm.
maybe work for free a couple times, or maybe just do something because you're passionate about it. And in turn, it will lead to work that you love that you'll get paid for. And it's like, it's just time and time again. I hear these stories of people that are like, yeah, I did this thing and it was just because I wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden I got hired by Nike and they wanted me to do something like that for them. And it's like, that's how this happens. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really good, important lesson for young designers out there that maybe are afraid of doing that kind of work, or hear like work for free. And they're like, no way, never in a million years. It's like, no, we've all done it. And that's how we get to this, sort of a wonderful place that we're in right now.
Let me give you a quick example, just like from recent history.
Let's do it.
So Minnesota, where I live,
Yep.
they're doing a competition to design the state flag, because our state flag is offensive. It has like a Native American running away from a white farmer that has a shotgun leaning against a stump by him. It's like the worst. It's the worst state flag you'll ever see. And so thank goodness they're gonna redo this thing, but there's zero budget. It's a contest thing where you're like, why would you do that? And I started pitching ideas and sharing them and sharing work in progress. And I did for two weeks straight. I shared everything I worked on. I put it all out there on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and people loved it. They got engaged. The work got better because I was getting awesome feedback, and came up with some really good, really strategic options and submitted them. And I had multiple people say, Allan, why are you doing this for free? Why are you supporting this? Don't you know AIGA is against free work? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? And I'm telling you right now, number one, I love doing a free project if it's for my community, and it's especially if it's replacing that horrible flag, man, I'll do that for free. Like, let's get that thing out of there. I don't want any sort of racist flag flying for my state. That's awful. Number two, if I designed the state flag for Minnesota, I would put that on my gravestone. It would say Allan Peters, designer of the Minnesota state flag. And with like 2 thumbs up, just being so happy.
Yeah, wear it around your back like you're Conor McGregor,
Yeah. And then the best part is I probably received 5 or 6 new business inquiries that weren't like can you do this for $50? Like legitimate big projects that came in because they saw the process, and they're like, cool, I want to work with this guy. Could you brand all my auto dealerships or whatever, to work on a big project from Walmart, or they a lot of cool things, man, that came in because I was designing flags for free.
Yeah. I've taken a look through those flags, and
Yes.
I think your flag is amazing. However, I don't know if you're going to be able to compete with some of those ones that are made in Microsoft Paint.
Kevin was showing me this yesterday. He said, I think Allan's got this contest. I think you brought a level of professionalism that I don't think the rest of the competition is. Right.
Yeah. I mean, these contests are great because like there's somebody just like submitted a photo of their dog. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, you just got to hope that the internet doesn't get a hold of this contest and sort of root for something ironically, because that would be your only potential downfall here.
The best part is that they have a group of people that are going to narrow it down to 5.
Oh, well, that's
and that group is run by Luis Fitch, and he is AIGA fellow with phenomenal work. He's designed postage stamps for the U.S. Postal Service. He's a Hispanic leader of design in the Twin Cities. Just incredible. I love his use of color, good taste, loves minimalism. So if he's leading the charge, which he is, I know they'll pick 5 great ones, but then it does go out. Those 5 will go out there and
for an internet vote.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a vote, but everybody can comment on it then, and then that will influence the final.
Well, you did a great flag. We love to
good.
see it over here.
Yeah, we're pulling for you. Yeah, and we'll put the weight of our podcast behind this.
Oh, 100%.
And yeah, you'll win this thing easy.
Unless one of those Microsoft Paint options. Triples through to one of those 5.
Yeah,
then we have no choice.
Yeah, then our community will most likely vote for the ironic one. That looks terrible.
Yeah.
But Allan, no, that's
I get it.
I could talk about it for days in terms of like, it's like do the work that you would do for free to get the work you would want to do for free, and people will pay you for it. So boom, that's the fucking life hack right there. I want to talk about Target for a second, because I remember back to 2012, roughly. And as you mentioned, I was working at Coke, you were working at Target. And I was an in-house designer, and at the time it wasn't the sexiest thing in the world, and I think people were just starting to work in-house as designers, and design was changing. And I remember I discovered your work, and I was just like, holy shit, this guy is killing it. Like, I remember on your website you were like in mid photo shoot on like your about page. I don't know why I have this in my head, but like you were like on the floor like measuring something or something, and I was just like, this guy's a badass. And like there were a handful of campaigns that you really like took the Target bullseye, which is such an iconic mark, and you were doing it and reinventing it in such bold and modern ways. And I was just, I referenced it all the time as sort of like, this is a way in which the legacy brand that can
the Target worked a lot of the better agencies in town. So even the little shops, the like Wink, or there was a shop called Catalyst, and they'd all get a couple of Target projects each year, like that. And it was, so that was always nice to see those. But then there was one agency in town called PMH, Peterson Milla Hooks, and they would do, so when Target first did like the cool commercials, like with Spot the Dog and the pattern bullseyes and stuff like that, back in like, I want to say mid 90s, late 90s, something like that. There's one spot called Sign of the Times. That was like the first big one, and it was so different and so badass. And it wasn't advertising a single product; it was advertising the logo. Like that was it. And I remember seeing that stuff, and it was all, it was featured in CA and like got like tons of awards, probably, one show pencils and all, like you guys have on your walls. They were like the Alex Center, Center Brooklyn of their time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
you don't
saying?
need to pepper us with compliments, but keep them coming.
Yeah, of course. Like I looked at all that work, and I think a lot of creatives wanted to work for PMH because they were doing the core branded stuff. And then like the in-house team for Target, early on back then, a lot of the stuff that they were doing is where they were taking the work that the agency would do, and then converting it to in-store, like trying to flush it out, stuff like that. The in-house team was, there was some creative, but I think a lot of it was production level stuff, or they're taking things and executing on what PMH was doing as kind of the North Star, right? And so I always thought that was pretty cool. I heard stories about people who worked at PMH and they did like crazy hours and like sleeping underneath the desks and all kinds of stuff like that, because
that's what we do here at Center. Very similar.
They're putting in the work, Yeah. And anyhow, back when I was at BBDO, I was, I had worked a bunch of small shops, and then BBDO was a big ad agency. I got an opportunity to work at Target, and it was one of these things where I was like, I don't know, like with the in-house team, like I got to work on a badass brand like Target, and I was just like, yeah, boy, let's go. That's so excited, and I just was like, I'll take on as much work, as much of this awesome work as possible. I wasn't even assigned to work on the core branding, and I saw the guys working on it, and I'd gone in and looked on, I was like just checking out the work on the walls, like with giant eyes, like, oh man. I was like, I asked the creative director, can I please work on this project with you guys? Like, I know you guys are like halfway through it, but can I just throw down, dude? I was used to working at agencies. I was like, I'll make it happen. I'll catch up. And I threw down a bunch of ideas. And do you remember the campaign that had the big bullseyes with the little people on it?
Yeah, of course. With the flag and the kite and the balloon and the watering can, all of it.
Dude. So I designed that in like the first month I was at Target, and
Wow.
we had done all these different things, and my creative director, like our group, I don't know, ACD or something like that. I had
Yeah.
shown them to my ACD, and they were like, I don't know about that. That's kind of weird with the little people on the bullseye. I'd maybe show it without the people on it. And so I presented all these other ones, and I had just like these crop bullseyes. And it was right around the time I think Coke had just done those really cool cans with the big crop Coke, and I was like, that's kind of cool, like what Coke's doing, you know.
It's a
And
big
they're like,
moment for big oversized cropped logos.
right.
The like, yeah, 2010s.
And the bigger, like the more ECD type level dude, when he was reviewing everything, he's like, I really like this, but I feel like it's just missing something. It's missing the human touch. You know, I feel like it has to have that style. It has to have the people. And I'm like, wait here, I got it. And I went and grabbed my printouts that were in my recycling bin in my office, and I ran back and I pinned them on the wall. I'm like, how about this? And he's like, yes, like that. We're presenting that one. So like of the 5 or 6 directions that got presented, because there were a bunch of designers on it, they presented that one, that was like mine. And the even higher up group super creative director, there are so many layers at Target. They picked that one, and I got to go to New York for the first time and shoot it with like amazing photographers with huge budgets, like ridiculous. It was like a fairy tale, man. It was insane. And yeah, just, what an experience. Yeah, it was cool working at Target, and to work on all that core branding. And yeah,
I
I
love
don't
the
know
story.
what else to say. I could keep talking about it.
I love it. And again, it's just another sort of story in which you weren't really necessarily let into the party or invited to be like, hey, Alan, here's your brief. Here's we want to see 5 designs for Target posters by Friday. It's like just you, like, sort for me as a designer at that time, I was like, "Oh man, this dude's fucking killing it in house, like making a name for himself. He's got this, like amazing work, and he's promoting himself as part
Yeah.
of the Target, team." And so I was really inspired by that, truly. And I think I was like, "Oh, I'm an in-house designer." And I have similar opportunities for Powerade or for Nestea or,
Yeah.
sort of like other brands that maybe, I wasn't maybe in the way, in the room for.
Yeah.
And I kind of made that kind of happen for myself. And similarly, good things happen. So I just think, it's so important. And so thank you for sort of opening that door for me. And, again, also like AIGA, as you mentioned, like in-house, you and I both have done a lot of sort of speaking and sort of just trying to help change the perception of in-house. And I think that's also
Yeah.
really important because it's a great place to work, right? Like, in terms of the life work balance, and also just like working or for Coke or Target, these are iconic, incredible brands.
I love the working at Target, and I had a hard time leaving.
I wanted to ask about that because, again, similarly, you and I have left and sort of these big jobs, like, and I talk about my experience being nervous and scared and afraid of losing everything. It's like, how did you have the courage to leave and start your own thing? And like, talk to me just about sort of, that time in your life and making that decision.
So back in 2015 there, actually it was probably closer to when we first started talking, like 2013 or something like that. I got a laptop, and we had moved out to Eagan, where I live now, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so all of a sudden I had a 45-minute commute on my bus. did that to and from work. I was like the weird guy on those long benches in the front of the bus with my Pantone book all spread out, my laptop on my lap, sketchbook on the right, taking up like half the bus to myself. And people thought I was so weird, but I had 45 minutes, man, both ways. It's an hour and a half a day. And after 2 years of doing that, doing these freelance projects in the bus for ESPN and Nike and stuff like that, my wife, she had done her taxes and she said, Alan, do you realize you made more money on the bus this year than you made at Target? And so a lot of people, like, we dreamed of having an agency way back when I was an intern at my first job out of school, and Maria was still in college, and she'd come and hang out with me, and we talked about all the things we dreamed of, having a family, having kids, all these things like that. I'd read Paul Rand's book, and I was like, what about if I had a book with my name on it? Like, how cool would that be? And running our own agency. And like you guys said, you were nervous and scared to jump into it. For me, I took the long route, and like I worked towards it for like 15 years. I was doing freelance projects all through my career, building up clients, building up a reputation, building up the internet, the social following and stuff like that, until I basically was running a full-time agency while working at another place. And then I just transitioned, and I was able to like pour myself more into the agency. And honestly, I work a lot of times I take Fridays off, and almost every Friday, and it's 4-day work weeks, and I get a lot of time with my kids, and I take on as many projects as feel comfortable, and I make way more money than I ever made at any of the other places, because there's nobody to take a cut of it, right?
Nice.
Beautiful thing.
So yeah, it was awesome. It all came to fruition, and finally got to have the agency, which we have now, my wife and I, and just recently got to write this book, which does have Allan Peters on it. And, it's really cool. It is the best-selling logo book in the world, and has been for the last 2 weeks. It's straight selling better than all the other ones. It has, after one week out, it has 55-star reviews on Amazon, and this is the best part, before it even launched, it sold over 5,000 copies, and it's going to second printing before the launch day, which is
wow. Alan, congrats, man. Honestly, it's massive.
That's awesome.
And, it's funny. I never really thought of you as a salesman before, but now that I'm seeing it, I think you're, the I love logos, sort of craftsman. You're, that's just a facade for the salesman, the guy that's got a book in store, and I think you might have a second life as an infomercial guy. Alan, this is a real. I'm seeing another side of you that I really like. I think this is wonderful.
Yeah, shoot. I do have like a big chunk in here where I talk about, selling work to clients, because to make a good mark, you guys know it, or to sell like something like those United sodas behind you, you can show it to them, but you still got to sell that through. There's so much good work that gets killed when it's just on the wall, and they don't pick the best direction or whatever. And if you can't guide your client and sell the good work, you're never going to make the good work. So yeah, it's a big part of it.
Yeah. I just want to ask, do you ever take the bus again to get the creative juices flowing, because of so much of your sort of early days were spent working on a bus? You ever just like get in a rut and you're like, okay, I got to get on that bus and start breaking out the Pantone chips? Does that ever cross your mind?
I've thought of just nostalgically doing it, because I like it, just like to go downtown and go see, like visit a bunch of friends down there. And I have gone down there, but I did drive. But I think it would be kind of fun just to take the express bus, stay down there the whole day, go just like visit a bunch of buddies I know at all the different agencies and stuff like that. Maybe hang out at a coffee shop, meet up, schedule a bunch of stuff. I think that would be a lovely day. But I always end up, I got 4 kids, man, and I got a family, and I really am just hanging out with them,
Yeah, you got to escape the house sometimes, So
Yeah.
talking about the book, sorry to derail us there. Let's get back to the book. Logos at Last, in stores now, #1 bestseller everywhere you find books. What's it like to write a book? And you mentioned sort of at the very beginning, you were sort of like, it's a dream to have that sort of book. My computer, not a joke, is propped up on the table on Vignelli and Paul Scher. So, I have a number of books in the studio across on the other side of this sort of shelving unit, and also propping up my computer. Like, dream come true, obviously. Talk about the process. Like how long did it take to sort of put this thing together, and sort of did you always have a vision for sort of a book about logo making? Is that sort of fair to say?
I'll walk you through it. Just first, I got to say my monitor is propped up on. I have a double book set of Joseph Elber's Interaction of Color. I don't know if you know Joseph Elber's. He did like the really cool color studies with the squares. I love Joseph Elber's so much. But yes, I never get to look at Joseph Elber's because he's underneath my computer.
That's right, exactly. Another good lesson: prop your computer up on Legends.
Oh yeah, you want to be able to see it, right?
Exactly.
So, I originally have always wanted to write a book, a logo book, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write. And so I started doing some research and knowing that I did want to write one at some point. And I've read by doing research, just going and reading through a lot of these and seeing what I don't know, like the Saul Bass book or Paul Rand by Stephen Heller or Michael Beirut's how-to book. Draplin's book, all of them, like they all have different styles. Some are more about typography, some are more case study based, some are the portfolio show where it kind of tells their life through their work, and they're all a little bit different. And or like George Boca, I don't know if you know him, but like his is very much like intro to graphic design and brand identity, logo design, and so and his is very much like a textbook. And so there's a huge collection of them, and I kind of like, I could have written a lot of different books, a lot of different styles. I've got a lot of different ideas, and but no, I didn't have a publisher, and I wasn't going to sit and do a Kickstarter. Like I legitimately, I wanted good distribution and stuff like that. Sure. And so people kept asking me for years. They're like, "Hey, do you have a logo book? Do you have something that talks about your process? I want to know what you know. Do you have a Kickstarter, or not a Kickstarter, like a Skillshare, or YouTube videos that talk through it?" And I've always wanted. I've got asked to teach a bunch at different colleges, and I always thought that I would really like to do the book as a way to teach, to give back and share what I know with other folks and what I've learned. Because when I first started in design, I wasn't great. I sucked at, like, right out of school, and it took me a long time to get decent. I didn't start winning awards or anything like that till I was at least like 6 years out of college, and took a bit. And when I was young, I would sit at the agency until like 1 a.m. sometimes, not because I had to, because I just wanted to work on my craft and get good. And I knew my work wasn't at that level yet, and I wanted it to be. And so I would work kind of towards this goal of, having, like, after reading Paul Rand's book, I'm like, what
in stores now, Paul Rand.
I just put these two books on my desk because I'm like, I don't want to reference this one.
Yeah.
And so this is by Stephen Heller, who he's written so many books. I think Debbie Millman's had him on a billion times.
Legend.
So after reading this, I remember thinking, like, what an accomplishment, what a legacy he left. And gosh, I'd love to do that. But to do that, you got to be able to fill this big book with work. You have to have something to share, and you can't do that like right away. And you have to kind of work toward that. And so I was kind of at this point now where after over 20 years in the field, that, hey, maybe it's time for this. And after keeping these requests over and over again, Maria's like, "Allan, just put it out there. Let people know. Let people know that you want to write a book. And if you put it out in the universe, you have a lot of followers. Maybe somebody will see it." And I made one video, and it was IGTV back when that was a thing. And it was 20 minutes long. Who's going to sit on Instagram for 20 minutes and watch a video and not flip to the next thing? Like, who has an attention span like that? I don't. I
Not
could, you
me.
know, I'm like 30 seconds and I'm swiping to the next one. I'm I got the
Yeah.
ADHD a little bit. And and so my publisher, Jonathan, he did watch this video where I reviewed a couple design books, and at that way end, I said that I was doing it for research to write my own book. And he sent me an email like months, probably 2, 3 months after I posted the video, and he's like, "Hey, I just watched this IGTV video you posted, and I see you want to write a book. Like, let's do it. Let's make your dream a reality." And so that was the beginning of it. And then at that point, you know, he talks to a lot of people. He's like like a senior. What is it like? It's not recruitment, but generally like recruiting authors and people to write books. And he has to vet them first, make sure that they can make it to the finish. Because there's a lot of people that I'm sure he works with that only get like halfway through a project and they just flake out because they have so much other work. They're running agencies and stuff like that, you know. But like the first thing you have to do is you have to write like a full on pitch deck. That's like an elevator pitch, why there's room in the market, like why this book should exist with all the other logo books out there, all the other design books out there. Why the heck is anybody going to want to buy it? Who's the target audience? Why do they care whatsoever? You know, how can I help promote it? Do I have a following? You know, how many people am I able to reach? And like, I had to have it all listed out in bullets, something that you go through in like 3 minutes, and you'd get done with it and be like, no brainer, let's make a book. And they had to sell it all the way up. And so got approved, got to make the book. And my hook for this book, you know, because I talked about a lot of different stuff. It isn't the portfolio show. It isn't like, hey, the Allan Peters story, start to finish ego trip. It's called Logos That Last, and it's about creating timeless brand marks. How do you like when you think of the Eames Lounger, you know, how beautiful and timeless that is. Ray and Charles Eames got that right, and they just nailed it. And they were standing on the shoulder of giants. They were looking at what came before them, and they took the best of the best, and they applied a little bit of innovation, and they made something that is still used all the time in beautiful studios and beautiful spaces. And how do you do that for logos? Like, why is the CBSI still around? You know, it's simple, it's unique, and it's memorable. You know, it's these three key things, the perfect balance, and you can't make that thing any more simple. That is such a beautiful mark. And Target Bullseye, same thing. That's a dot and a ring, right? Like, how are you going to make that simpler? Like, who's going to refine that? What do you make the you know, like, hey, it's just a dot now.
Remove the ring.
Yeah, all of a sudden it loses the memorability, because I think every mark should have a good story, you know, in the same way, like when you meet somebody for the first time and you try and come up with a story to remember their name, or if you meet two people and one person's name is Alex and the person's name is Hawk, you're going to later on remember Hawk's name because there's a story to it. And there's a lot of Alexes out there, right?
Wow.
I remember Alex Center.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Because Alex Center is like freaking famous.
Oh.
And like the definition of awesome.
But
awesome
if my name
Brooklyn
was Hawk, though, Hawk Center, now that's a name, you know, that would be
Hawk Center.
Name change incoming.
Yeah.
Imagine how many awards would be on that wall.
If my name was Hawk.
Hawk Center.
He's the greatest branding guru that ever existed. You know, Hawk Center. No, well, congrats, man. It's beautiful. As I mentioned, Kevin read it cover to cover. I noticed just there were a lot of logos in here, and that's you know, but I have I'm kidding. I have sort of looked through it as you sent it to me last week. Thank you so much, and it's awesome, and I appreciate, like you said, like the sort of telling of the stories and the not just making it an ego show and not.
Aircraft, that is for a small pizza truck, like the It's actually a trailer where they do wood-fired pizzas in
Yep.
South Dakota, of all places.
Wow.
I was
Lucky them.
back during COVID. Draplin was doing like these Instagram lives every Friday, and there'd be a ton of people in there. And I remember one night I was folding laundry, and I had the phone out, and I just had his live going, and I just like hit the wave button or something like that, And Lee tells Draplin, she's like, "Oh, Allan's on. I know you want to talk to him." And he's like, Allan, come on right now. And so, you could like invite people on. So I go on. I held up. I had like the Draplin design book, and I was like, "Oh," I went and got. I was like, "Oh, I was just reading. What's up?" And
just he
goes, no, he goes, "Listen, man, I want to tell you a story." And he goes, I go around the whole country speaking and promoting my book and all these things like that, and I end up going in all sorts of small places and big places. Here, I'm trying to find that logo while we're talking. I'm not going to find it because I'm so focused on Alex. Look for the page on negative space logos.
I'm looking for it.
It'll be 4 logos side by side. It's just negative space. Anyhow, so he's like, "Man, I went for I was in South Dakota in the Black Hills, and there was this delicious smelling pizza truck, and I went and got a slice. And when I looked at the logo, I was like, wow." And I asked them, I said, "Who did that logo? It's amazing." And they're like, "Oh, this guy from Minneapolis, Allan Peters." And he's like, "I know that guy." And he's like, he goes, "I just want to tell you, Allan, in front of all these people," he goes, "that day you taught Aaron Draplin something." And I love that logo. And that was one of the biggest compliments I've ever got. I love Aaron Draplin, and big fan. But yeah, that's probably one of the ones that stands out. There's a couple other ones. There's a North Stars one I did that.
Yeah, I love that one.
People really love.
Allan, before we move off the pizza logo, can I add another compliment to your compliment sort of story? Kevin, so we're talking yesterday, obviously, talking about you in this interview and talking about, questions we're going to ask you. And I said to Kevin, can back me up here. I said, what my favorite logo that Allan has ever made. I said, it's a pizza logo. See if it's in there. See if it's in the book. And Kevin was looking through, and he's like, "Oh, there's the logo that you look at." I said, "That's my favorite thing that Allan's ever made." I was like, "I love it so much." It's on page 53.
Okay.
And for those that want to see it, and it's funny. Yeah, I was saying yesterday that of all your incredible work, that is the thing that to me that really stands out, or just like, again, just a personal favorite. It's so genius, so incredible. Last year, maybe 2 years, I'm not going to give out all the details, but we were approached by a big giant pizza chain, and they have fire in their brand, and we did not get the job. But the entire time that I was thinking about this project, I was in my head going, "There's no way we're going to make something better than Allan made for that pizza truck." And in my head, I was like, well, maybe if we get this job, I hope that pizza truck is, maybe they are out of business, and I can reach out to Allan and ask him to collaborate with us, or like legitimately, that was my thought process, because I was like, he's created the world's greatest pizza fire mark. There's only one thing we could do, which is try to license it, which is, again, nothing I've ever even considered in my entire career of design, and that is the highest compliment I can give you. And I wonder how many people have reached out to you about that logo, or ripped the logo off, or just like, because it's so brilliant and it's so simple, and it's again, it's just stuck here in my brain. I can't even think about pizza or doing pizza branding without thinking about that logo.
The logos that have been ripped off the most, because I get stuff ripped off all the time. This logo's been ripped off a ton of times, and there will be people that take it, outline it, and then put it on like Getty Images and sell it. And I have to like go and like seek it out and take it down. And I'm like, stop doing that. Like, so that one, both the Minnesota cities I had designed the logos for, City Egan that I live in and City of Shoreview. those, like, there's a hotel chain that ripped off Shoreview is running commercials in the Middle East, I think, or they're somewhere in Europe area over there. And people keep telling me about, they're like, oh, so I get DMs all the time about this hotel chain that runs commercials with the Shoreview logo that they stole. And Shoreview does, I don't know if they don't care or what, or they're just, they're like, but and then a City of Egan, there that logo's been taken a ton of times, and like in Brazil, I've had a lot of people rip off my logos in Brazil.
Wow.
For like big companies stole it, and they went after them. And the other one was gosh, what was it? The Loving All Peoples logo, which is one of the ones at the way end of this. It has 3 hearts, and I literally sketched this logo out over the phone on the pitch call with or the original call with the client. That wasn't pitch. He's the guy runs a ministry, and he's just like a couple man show. You know, it's not like a big deal. But he said he had this idea, and it's going to be loving all peoples. And I was like, oh, you could be loving, heart. And I'm like, oh, you could just rotate that and make it LAP, loving all people. Like, well, let's go.
Brilliant.
There is a dating show in Brazil, a huge one. And they rotated one of those, I think, one other way, made them into neon colors, and then it came out afterwards. And there were a bunch of news reports and stuff in Brazil, all, that I can't, like, I'd have to have translated, of people saying how they ripped off United States designer Allan Peters.
Loving all Brazilians. That's it.
I said it. I said it to him because he's like one of those like home churches, like where they don't have a giant place, and so I did it. I don't know if I got paid for that one. Maybe I just done it for him for the heck of it.
Yeah. Certainly not enough money to hire a lawyer.
But yeah, I sent those to him, and he was like, "Is this real? Are people like, is this a real thing? There's a giant dating show in Brazil that stole our logo." I don't know.
It happens. But
yeah, you can't get too stressed about it. Like if it's a big brand, they're not going to mess with that. Like when I do stuff for like Blue Cross Blue Shield, or for I don't know, Disney or whatever, nobody ever messes with that work. It's always the small brands that they're like, yeah, we can get this and just lift it.
I hope the pizza truck is still doing well. I actually don't wish bad upon the pizza truck. I just they have the greatest pizza logo of all time, and it's incredible. And luckily we didn't get that project, so I didn't have to try to create a different one or reach out to you and say, because I would have given you his contact info. I bet you if you guys would have given him like a chunk of like what you guys were making, like a percentage, like maybe even like 40% of what you guys were bringing in for that logo, he would have been like, it's all yours. I'll have another one made. No, I'll have something else. It's so iconic. And, again, like obviously I see so much design, and there's so many brands and so many logos out there. And it's just like, you're right. Like there are, like, it is a logo that lasts in my head. And it's just because I always think about it, and it's just so simple and so beautiful. And yeah, so much of your mark making is just, so like what I love about it is the, like you said, is the simplicity and the storytelling that comes with it. It's like they're very simple ideas that you just it's crafted so beautifully. Mm-hmm. We posted something on our Instagram yesterday about the Chili's mark, how the the pepper has an apostrophe for the S, and like, oh yeah, it's just like those little things and those little moments of just genius that like, again, like it takes so many years to have that skill that you have, which is to sort of notice that a heart could be turned a couple different ways and be just a, an iconic mark, or, taking, a bike and a heart, or finding these sort of intersections of sort of putting ideas together. And I think that's what makes some really memorable and really iconic stuff. So you got your work cut out for you to write the second book. You got to go design like 100 more logos, I think, Allan. No. That's the challenge.
I think it would be a little bit different. Like if I write a second book, it would either be, God, there's a couple of them I'd love to write. I would love to write one that was, I love digging for antiques and finding badges and crests and stuff like that. One of the cool things I found was that as I started traveling around and speaking, is that when you go to different cities and different places and different regions, because it's before Amazon and everybody was buying stuff that was made where they lived. The design tends to be regional, very regional back then. And instead of everybody having the same Patagonia coat, there was, this product was made here and they bought it here, and this product was made here and they bought it here, and it was very much separated. So when you go to start digging around for that stuff, you find all sorts of new things. Like if I looked in Maine and then I looked down in Arizona, I'm going to find a whole bunch of different types of packaging and stuff like that. And so I thought it'd be really cool to do a book that's regional based on that. And here's the best part: take like 3 to 6 months off, drive around the country with the family, and then document it all and talk about like the journey of finding all this stuff and all the funny little like goofy places that you'd have to go in to find this stuff, the little small town museums and stuff. I think that would be a cool book. That's one of the ones I'd love to write. I put it in here in at the end, kind of putting it out into the universe. I'd like to write that book, if you're a publisher and you want to make that one.
Hear me out. I think we're thinking too small with book. I'm thinking like
Netflix show.
I'm thinking
go to the smaller towns. Like if I'm trying to, like when I went down to Houston to speak, this is like, God, probably 10 years ago. I had gone down there and I had asked them, I was like, hey, when I'm down here, we're gonna have an extra day or two. Can you guys like take me some antique stores? Can we go like digging around? Like, is there anything nearby? And instead of, they're like, there's not a whole lot here in Houston, even though it's the fourth biggest city, and I think it's the fourth biggest city in the country. But we drove down to Galveston, which is right on the coast there. So it took a half an hour, 45 minutes to get down there. But really cool, like just tons of really unpicked through antiques there. You can find the older stuff. The thing is, you go to a lot of antique stores now, and it's getting to the point where it's like, hey, it's Ninja Turtles, and it's all the stuff we grew up with, Transformers and things like that. And you're not finding, it's not the stuff from the 50s and 60s anymore. It's like lunch boxes with Smurfs on them and stuff like that, which I love 80s memorabilia and stuff like that. I think that's cool, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not trying to like get inspired by a big Smurf, man. I want a sick patch.
Makes you feel real old when you go antiquing and you find your own childhood memories there.
Yeah, dude.
It's a dark day, but it's sad but it's true. That's where we're at. Before we get out of here, Allan, I would be remiss if I didn't tell another story about you, which is maybe a personal story, if you're okay with going there for a second.
Yeah, sure.
You and I were at AIGA Design Camp, which is another Minneapolis sort of event that is incredible. Honestly, one of the best design conferences that I've ever spoken at. It's like a retreat, and it's in the wilderness. Kevin, you'd love it. It's people wearing flannel, touching grass, and
wow,
talking about design.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. And I've seen maybe one of the first times I've seen you do a live talk or just doing a conference talk, and
yeah.
And of course, I was familiar. We've been friends, and we met like about 10 years ago, and have this shared in-house sort of love and sort of experience and knowledge, and so much of our paths they've crossed many times. And so I'm watching your talk, and you're showing all your incredible work, and showing your process, and showing all the things that you do, and and I'm loving it, right? And I'm like, Allan is so fucking good. He's so talented. And then the whole talk takes a turn in the middle, and you tell a story about when you got shot, and talk about things that have stuck with me. I think it really was it's just one of those stories that just honestly changed my perception of life, and again, it changed my perception of you, and it's just one of those things that just really, I didn't know. And I was really kind of, it's a shocking story, but a beautiful story. And so I'd be curious, if you don't mind, just kind of telling us. If you're not comfortable with it, that's also fine too. You
No,
can plead the fifth here and run away, and we can.
you know, I love telling the story as a Christian guy. You know, it's my testimony too. So I had wanted to like have it near the front of my book and like talk about that. And my publisher was like, he's like, it's a logo book. You're talking about logos. That's, you know, that is like maybe not, you know, maybe like pull it back a little bit. I think I originally wrote it was like 4 spreads or something. I was just like went all in, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought about it a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I really wanted to tie everything in my book back to designing logos to make sure it was valuable and things like that. I do talk about it in the book, but I really try and pull it back into like the how it relates back to the work. And so I'll talk to that for a minute. So back in 2009, when I was working in advertising and working like 60, 65-hour weeks and a lot of weekends. And it was my wife's birthday, and we were celebrating her 26th birthday. I was that would make me 29, or 2009, 29 years old, and she was turning 26. She was a young man, and we had a big party, and we had just moved into a new house, and so it was kind of like a housewarming party too. So I got to see everybody that we knew completely, and like friends I hadn't seen forever, family. We had relatives up from like southern Minnesota and stuff like that. There were so many people that came by, and it was like all the people that would be at your funeral or whatever, you know, it's like they were all there. And so I got to see everybody in my entire life, right on this beautiful day, celebrating my wife. And then the other thing about that time is, you know, we were talking earlier about kids, and I always wanted to, you know, at first, you know, basically leaving up to my wife. I was like, if you want to have them, we can do it. If you don't, and she had just made that decision that she wanted to have kids, and so we were trying to have our first kid at the time too. We were trying to have a child, and it was about the time of the month where it was like, okay, you know, or we could probably take the test now, find out if you're pregnant. I was bugging her all day long. I was like, come on, let's do it, Maria. And she's like, Allan, you're probably 2 weeks off before it'll be even kind of accurate, because, you know, like if you take the test way too early, it's like 5% accuracy or something like that. And so I'd been bugging her about it that whole day. And after everybody had left, and there were only a couple people left, it was us and another couple. And I won't get to like belabor this. I don't want it to be like, you know, the longest podcast of all time, but it was probably around midnight, 1 a.m, something like that, and we're having a fire out back in our Target purchased fire bowl, you know, like one of those like little copper bowl things that you can buy, and just relaxing under the stars, and just kind of everybody was gone and could kind of relax finally. And some kids came to our yard, and they're all dressed up with ski masks and everything, and probably, I'm guessing, teenagers, like late teenagers, 18, 19, maybe, you know, they're young. And they walked in our yard, and I went to like, hey, you know, walk around, you know, because kids would cut through our yard sometimes, because we're one of the only houses on the block that didn't have a fence. And I'd be like, hey, stay off my lawn, you know. I was like that dude. And so I went to go confront these kids, and they pull a gun out, and they're just like, sit back down, you know, like, you know, you ever see that movie Date Night? And they have it's with Steve Carell, and the guy pulls a gun on it, and then all of a sudden he turns the gun sideways, and Steve Carell's like, oh no, he's got it in kill mode or something like that, because he has the gun sideways. So these guys they're like, sit back down. And it was like a really weird, uncomfortable situation, not really knowing, like, it almost seemed weird, like, because they had like the ski mask on and gloves and stuff, and it looked like some like weird thing out of like some movie like Juice or something like that, you know, that Tupac movie Juice. It just like, it didn't seem like it should even be happening. But anyhow, they're grabbing at our pockets, looking for money. They wanted money, and they're just, you know, screaming at us. And Maria calls into the house to the couple. The other guy was inside, and it's like, Ben, call the police. We're being robbed. Don't come to the window. Ben comes to the window because, you know, it's all good. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing. Comes to the window, it's like pulls his pockets, doesn't have anything. They're pissed now because Maria told them to call the police, and they put the gun right to her head. And it's her birthday, and she's probably pregnant. And number one, if I didn't do anything at that point, I never would have lived that down. But my wife would have, and I'm like, I got to do something about it. In my head, I'm like, I have to handle this situation. And I just attacked the guy closest to me, just punched him as hard as I could. He flew back, and I turned to the guy with the gun, and like I was just going to go after him. And the guy with the gun points, bam, shoots me right between the ribs. And the bullet's still in me. I can feel it. It's right in here. They didn't take it out. I've traveled horizontal. Like that, you know, this is like a smaller gun, and just, you know, and you know, it made a spark, and like it hit me, and I turned, and I just rushed the guy with the gun, just screaming at them to get the hell out of my yard. And I chased them for about half a block before I realized I was dying, you know, bleeding to death. And stumbled back to my yard, and my wife saved my life that day. A lot of people will freeze up in those type of situations, just like stare and not know what to do. She's like, lay down, Allan. She put pressure on the wound. She's like, Jennifer, you call the police, or, you know, the ambulance and stuff like that. And Ben, you get towels right now. And she was just like on it. And she's always like that. My wife is a badass. And and they got there quick, got me in the ambulance, took me downtown. And I'm telling you, when I was laying there on the ground, there was a lot of things coming out of my mouth that can't be said on this podcast, because you couldn't air it, because it was the most pain I've ever felt in my entire life. But at the same time, I was ready to go. I thought I was dead completely. I didn't see making it through that. I made my peace. And when you're a kid, man, I remember laying in bed, actually being scared and having a hard time falling asleep, thinking, gosh, I'm going to die one day. It's all going to be over. I'm going to be dead, and there's going to be nothing else after that. And just laying there with my eyes open, freaked out, you know, when I was like 6 years old. And so here I was, and I wasn't scared. I was like at peace with it. I was like, okay, you know, I made my peace with God at that moment. And I was like, all right, I'm like, I'm ready to leave this place. And it didn't happen that night. I didn't die. I got to the hospital, and they stitched and stapled me up, and it took 2 days. 2 days. They had me cut open from the base, like up base of my sternum, all the way down to like right below my belt line there, and around my belly button. Had the whole thing open, and just worked on me nonstop. I remember right before I went down, I asked the doctors, I was just like, I remember looking up at him, and I just said, please save my life. And he's like, I got you. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. And they took me to HCMC, which is like the place in downtown Minneapolis where like all the people who are like they're like trying to steal crack from somebody and they get shot. That's where they take them. You know, they deal with gunshots and stuff like that all the time. And so they kept, all the nurses and stuff assumed I was like some crazy crack addict or something, like while I was there. Well, and then they were like, oh no, it's just like a regular guy. It's just like a regular guy who got shot in his backyard. But
graphic designer. Yeah.
But it was cool when I came to. Like obviously I came to and I was like on all sorts of like heroin level drugs and stuff, like all the stuff that they have you on when you're shot. But when they like all that state, like when it kind of dosed me down to something where I could actually function in my brain more so. My wife took a pregnancy test and we found out we were pregnant with Matthew, which is amazing. And the best part about that is something like this. Like you hear people who came back from the war and they tell war and they're changed after that sometimes, and they can't get back. They can't get back into life. They can't like basically re-engage, and it can break people really badly going through a traumatic experience. For me, I found this as an opportunity to well, I learned that day, knowing that like I thought my life was over, that every day after that feels like a gift. And I feel like you can go at any time. And I know people say all the time, you could die any day, just like, live life to the fullest. But I literally came this close to dying. I lost over half the blood in my body. And if the bullet would have hit one of those ribs, it would have exploded like a grenade and I'd be dead. If I hadn't been running like 6 miles a couple of days a week, I would have bled to death because I wouldn't have been healthy enough. And if my wife wouldn't have been on it like she was, I would be a dead man. There's so many why didn't they turn around and shoot me again with that gun? They never found a bullet casing, which means that gun jammed. There's a lot of reasons I should be dead right now. And I feel like the Lord kept me here to be here for my family. And also, man, I feel like it taught me a huge lesson about how short life is and that you got to be fearless. You got to be fearless. So much good design and advertising is fear-based, and the person who's the head guys or head lady is so scared of what their customer is going to think of this. And the creative director is worried about what the CEO is going to think. And the ACD is worried about what the CD is going to think. And the designer is worried about what the ACD is going to think. And they're all scared, and they're all creating a little bit more lukewarm work because of it. And man, I say just go for it. Like that flag thing, man, I don't care if somebody tells me I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do free work because AIGA said you, man, I want to design our state flag. I think that would be amazing, and I'm just going to go for it, man. I'm not going to be scared about it. If we want to start our own agency, we're going to do that. If I want to write a darn book, we're going to go for it. And I learned that the life is short, go and get it done. So that's my takeaway from almost dying.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for telling that story. It is,
yeah, no problem.
I'm speechless. Like, I heard the story before, and I think, and it's a wild story, but it's an important story. And thank you again for telling it on our show. And it puts so much in perspective, and it really does. We are so lucky, all of us, to do this for a living. And I was saying, I said on a call earlier today, it's a privilege, really, it is. And we should all, approach life like that, and you never know. And and yeah, I've thought about that story, ever since that conference, and just really, it kind of puts so much. It's a beautiful story in the end, and and I just admire you. I have for many years, and the work that you do is incredible. And thank you for joining our show, and thank you for doing all the work that you do, and putting it all into this book, Logos That Last, available now. And continuing to sort of help other people, because I think that's the thing that we all can do, right? It's it's not just to do it for ourselves so that we can kind of drive sports cars and sort of wear expensive jewelry. That's not it's important about helping other people, and you can do that in so many different ways. And I think your story is, by telling it, I think, and not, like you said, you could run away from it or not. I think telling it and sort of is so important. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you. Incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And I think, and then actually a great way to end the show too, honestly. It's it's I don't know where we could possibly go from here, but Alan, you're a great guy. Where can people follow you if they want to see some of your amazing work and follow along on your journey as you post every single day, which I'm actually incredibly impressed by, because social media, it's you make it look easy, but it's a lot of work, I know, to post every single day. It's fatiguing and tough, yeah, but important.
Oh,
It's helped build your business and brand and everything. So it's also another important thing. Don't be afraid to post your stuff out there, put it online.
absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me. Love your work. The work you guys are doing at Center is amazing. Obviously the awards, they they tell the story right there. But even without them, man, like the first time you showed that United Soda's work, holy cow, man. I was like, oh, these guys are gonna be huge. Where can you find me? You can find me at Allan Peters. So at and then ALLANPETERS. And that's all social media, pretty much everywhere. I'm not on TikTok. Somebody else already has Allan Peters, so I'm like, screw that TikTok. What else? Our website is petersdesigncompany.com. And yeah, it'd be awesome if you came and visited and stopped by, or follow on Instagram, man. I've been posting a lot on LinkedIn. That's where the clients are, dude. Post on
Nice.
the LinkedIn,
That's
man. Telling you guys.
LinkedIn is the underrated sort of social media platform. Kevin is a big kudos, or it's his thing. He goes around giving out kudos to
I
people
love
on
the
LinkedIn.
automated responses.
Yes, I do too. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
Hit me up on
Kevin.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, follow Kevin on LinkedIn.
And
We really
I will
wanna
give
see
you a lot of ad. We can have a whole automated conversation. All right,
I have
Kevin?
several automated
That's-
conversations going on in my messages right now
Nice.
that have been like running for years.
I love that. I love
So I
it.
would
Yeah,
love that.
I also I notice a lot of AI automated comments are happening. At least when I post, I'll be like, Alex Center, you and your team do such great work combining the powers of branding and design with the intention of strategy. Keep doing a good job. I'm like, that is not a human that wrote that comment.
It's not.
Um,
No, they have it built into the posting now. I posted something yesterday, and it was like, do you want to just put in some prompts and we will write the post for you? I'm like, no, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, LinkedIn, back off. Alan, as you see, people are trying to join this Zoom because there is a meeting that they are trying to attend. Alan,
Yes.
I'd love to hang. Our paths will cross again. But thank
Yeah.
you for doing the pod, and
Thank you.
I'm gonna sing your praises and sort of promote your book
Thanks,
as if it
dude.
was my own. So thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good
Thanks,
one,
Alex.
and we'll talk.
Thank
soon.
you so much.
Thanks, Kevin.